They say some halls never forget. At Maplewood High, locker 213 was welded shut 20 years ago after a tragedy nobody talks about. But when the new janitor started hearing soft cries from inside a girl's voice begging for help, he made the mistake of opening it. What he found inside wasn't a body. It was something much worse, a voice that wanted out, a secret that refused to stay buried, and a curse that would turn every echo in that hallway into a scream. This is the story of the locker that never went silent. The story that made Maplewood High the most haunted school in Maine. So if you ever hear crying in an empty hallway, don't go near it, because some voices aren't calling for help. They're calling for you. Maplewood High stood at the edge of a quiet Maine town, surrounded by pine trees and fog. It was old, built back in the 1950s, and every student knew the stories of flickering lights, cold hallways, and a locker that screamed at night. Nobody used the East Wing anymore, not since the accident 20 years ago. But when the school cut budgets, the new night janitor, Mark Collins, was told to clean it anyway. Mark had worked odd jobs all his life, factories, diners, a warehouse, or tubert. Nothing prepared him for the silence of Maplewood at night. The place felt alive. Every step he took echoed like someone was walking beside him. It started small, a whisper when he mopped the hall, a knock when he passed the old lockers. But one night, as the clock struck 1:13 a.m., he heard it, a soft, trembling voice. "Help me," he froze. The sound came from locker 213. He leaned closer, the metal icy under his fingertips. "Hello, please. It's dark. Let me out." Mark's breath caught in his throat. He ran to the principal's office, flipping through the master keys, but 213 wasn't listed. The locker had been sealed, welded shut years ago. Still, the crying didn't stop, and when he returned to the hall, the locker door had changed, just slightly bent, as if something inside had pushed. The next morning, Mark told the assistant principal what he'd heard. She went pale. "Don't joke about that," she snapped. "Locker 213 is off limits for a reason." He pressed her for details, but she refused. So that night, Mark searched the school's old storage room. Inside dusty boxes, he found yellow yearbooks, 2004, 2005, and there she was, Emily Harper, a junior who vanished during prom week. The note under her photo read, "Missing, presumed runaway." But newspaper clippings said otherwise. Blood found near locker area. Police never recovered the body. Mark's stomach turned. That night, when the lights dimmed, he went back to the East Wing. The hallway temperature dropped so fast his breath fogged. "Emily," he whispered. The whisper answered, "Why did they lock me in?" The metal rattled violently. Mark stumbled back. From inside came scraping like fingernails dragging down the steel, and then a sound that shouldn't have been possible. The locker exhaled. A blast of freezing air hit him. The overhead lights flickered, and for a moment he saw a reflection in the locker's polished surface. A girl with hollow eyes and blood running from her mouth. He bolted out, slamming the doors behind him. That night he couldn't sleep. In his dreams he stood in front of the locker again. The door was open, and something inside whispered, "You heard me. Now you belong here too." Mark returned the next evening, determined to quit. But when he told Principal Reynolds, the man just stared at him, unblinking. "You'll keep your shift," Reynolds said flatly. "You'll clean what you're told, and you'll forget about 213. Mark felt uneasy. It wasn't a suggestion, it was an order. So he did what anyone would. He disobeyed. He found an old maintenance map of the school and noticed something strange. The hallway that ended at locker 213 used to lead to a basement lab, sealed after a chemical leak in 2005. He pried open the corner tile of the hall floor and found a hatch inside. Concrete stairs leading into darkness. The smell of rust and mold filled the air. As his flashlight flickered, he saw broken desks, melted chairs, and chains on the walls. Old school experiment charts hung crooked, labeled behavioral response testing, student 213. Then, a shadow moved. Something small and pale crouched in the corner. When the light caught it, Mark dropped the flashlight. It was a girl's body, decayed, mummified, and yet her eyes opened. "Don't let him lock me again," she rasped. Mark screamed. The lights went out. When they came back, the body was gone. Only the echo of sobbing remained, and the number 213 scratched deep into the floor. The next week, teachers began reporting strange things. Classroom doors slammed on their own. Students heard humming in the hall when no one was there. The janitor's closet flooded with dirty water shaped like a footprint. And then came the phones. Every night at exactly 2:13 a.m., the school intercom turned on by itself. A girl's voice whispered, "Please, someone open the door." Mark tried to record it, but the audio glitched, filling with static. He played it backward and nearly dropped his phone. The voice said, "He's still here." That night, he followed the sound again. Locker 213 was vibrating now. The door dented outward. He lifted his mop handle like a weapon. "Emily, I'll get you out." He struck the lock once, twice, again until it cracked open. But when the door swung out, the locker wasn't empty. Inside was a staircase leading down. Part 5. The lad below. Mark's flashlight barely pierced the gloom. The air grew thick with the smell of chemicals and decay. At the bottom, he found a corridor lined with small metal doors, each marked with a number: 201, 202, 203, all welded shut. As he moved, the fluorescent lights above him flickered on one by one. And there, at the end, stood Principal Reynolds. "You shouldn't be here," Reynolds said coldly. Mark shouted, "What happened to Emily? What is this place?" The principal sighed. "She was part of a behavior study government funded. We tested sensory deprivation on volunteer students. Emily panicked. We couldn't let word get out, so we sealed it." Mark's blood ran cold. "You locked her alive. She wouldn't stop screaming," Reynolds said. "Now she never will." The hallway shook violently. The doors began rattling. Screams, hundreds of them, echoed from behind the metal. Reynolds turned, terrified. No, not again. The lights exploded. Black mist poured out of the lockers like smoke. Faces formed within it, angry, twisted, screaming. Mark ran, but hands grabbed his legs, pulling him down. He kicked, crawling toward the stairs. But something whispered in his ear, "You opened it. Now we're free." When police arrived the next morning, the school was empty. No Reynolds, no Mark, only the janitor's flashlight lay by locker 213, its beam pointing at a single message, scratched into the metal: "Help me." Classes resumed weeks later. The East Wing was sealed again, for renovation, but at night, students say they hear a mop rolling across the floor. Others claim to see a man in janitor's overalls walking the halls with blood dripping from his sleeves. And every October, when the fog creeps close to the building, the PA system still turns on at 2:13 a.m. That same trembling voice whispers through the halls, "Please, let me out." If you listen closely, though, there's another voice, now deeper, broken, whispering beside hers. It says, "Don't, it's too late." Maplewood High stands silent again, waiting for the next night worker who won't listen. And locker 213 still waits, humming softly, because once you open it, it never really closes again.